The Queen's Gambit. As you guys know, we have discussed this on previous streams. I have watched the series and I love it. I think it's a brilliant story. Whether you know how to play chess or not, it's truly a fascinating life journey that you get to witness through Beth in The Queen's Gambit. I definitely recommend that you watch it. I don't want to be making spoilers in case you have not watched it yet, but what we're gonna be doing today is to play against Beth Harmon. You heard it well, we're gonna be playing against Beth Harmon. Chess.com has created a bot that plays like Beth at certain ages of her career, so we're gonna be playing against Beth at the start of her career and then going all the way up. If we can beat Beth at her peak, that would be huge. I don't know if we can. Just the general media attention about me being the real life Beth Harmon. We shall see if I can play as well as Beth, because they already are making these comparisons, all sorts of media outlets, as I have already told you guys. So I better prove that I can play like her, not just look like her. I better prove that I can play like her. Let's go over to chess.com. Play chess with Beth Harmon from The Queen's Gambit. So this is a bot on chess.com that's free to play against, and you can choose which age, at which stage of Beth's career you want to play against. It starts at Beth age 8 and goes all the way up to her peak when she eventually becomes the best chess player in the world. Sorry if that was a spoiler, but I could not say that she became really strong. She became really good at the game. So we're gonna try our luck and play against Beth Harmon. If I'm supposed to be the real life Beth Harmon, I better be able to play as well as she does. And it's not an easy task. It's certainly not an easy task. Let's get started. Starting at the age of 8. Beth at the age of 8 is an 850 rated player. Beth has just started playing chess. She still falls for traps and doesn't see certain types of tactics. Remember how important tactics are, but she's improving quickly. Can you beat her before she becomes too strong? We're gonna try Beth at age 8. I'm gonna play with whichever color I'm given. Challenge, no help of any kind. Friendly, 3 takebacks. No takebacks. I'm just choosing the options here. I don't want any takebacks. We're gonna take this as a very serious game. No takebacks. Let's get started. I wonder what time control will I have to play with. She's saying, hello, let's start the game. So friendly. Really nice to meet you, Beth. I'm gonna play e4. Can we make it a timed game? Do I have to set... I'm not sure if I had to pick earlier the time control, but I guess because it's a bot, she's gonna be playing pretty fast. This pawn could be taken, but there are all sorts of tactics usually later. Whether it's true or not, I'm gonna play c3 for now and then push d4, just get the center for myself. Expand. Ooh, the delayed bombclad by Beth at the age of 8. I did not know that Hikaru had streams back in the 1960s, but I'm gonna take the free stuff. I'm gonna take the free piece. And now the king goes to f8. Alright, Beth has just started playing chess. I understand that. We're gonna take this pawn. We can also take here. Oh, she doesn't take back. Okay, I'm gonna take everything you give me, Beth. You are very friendly. You are very generous. So we have an extra piece on the board, but in order to use our full army, we need to develop the rest of our pieces. I would like to develop the bishop and castle. Is this a threat? Black can take on b2 and that will make the pawn hanging, but if the queen moves away from b6, we will have this check and the king should be in trouble later, hopefully. Shall we try that? Shall we just try a mating attack in case she takes it? Oh, she does not want the pawn. She doesn't want to. She pushes h5. Inspired by AlphaZero? Not sure. I'm just gonna castle. Now, she is making lots of pawn pushes, but this one actually makes sense to try to place the king on g7. I still need to develop the rest of my pieces too, so I'm gonna go for this route, getting the knight to b5. Let's annoy that queen a little more. Oh, she plays the Bottas Gambit too. Bone Cloud from Hikaru, Botez Gambit by Alexandra Botez. Beth, you are way too inspired by your favorite Twitch streamers. Beth, this is not the way to go. I know you love both Alexandra and Hikaru, but don't copy every single thing they do. Not when it comes to giving up your pieces. Everything is hanging. Everything is hanging. Poor Beth. Yeah, I can take this with the queen. That's a very strong check and should be checkmate sooner. I can also take with the bishop. Look at this diagonal. Now we could capture the free rook, or instead of that, this check, which will lead to checkmate very shortly after capturing. Now the knight, the king can only move to h6. What's the shortest way to mate? I would like to play this move, and after king h5 we can take the rook with a check. The king has to move here. Or we could start a better move order, bishop check, to use that moment for black to have to block the king, and then once we capture the rook, the king has no escape. The king has nowhere to run to. Oh, but I forgot that now the rooks are connected. Slight mistake there in my calculation. Slight mistake, but this still is winning because of this capture, and then queen g6. And then after king f4, we do have a checkmate on the board. Not exactly the mate I was aiming for. I messed it up there at the end. I was too distracted. But we did it. We managed to beat 8-year-old Beth. She has just started playing chess, so I guess this is not that big of an achievement. Let's try to go for the next challenge, the next game against Beth at age 9. At age 9, Beth is a 1200 rated player. She has improved under the tutelage of Mr. Scheibel. Shout out to Mr. Scheibel. Huge fan. I'm a huge fan here. She has started studying her openings and has a basic understanding of tactics and checkmates. Can you compete? Hopefully, we're gonna try to compete against Beth at the age of 9. Playing whichever color we are given. And the game has just begun. Good luck. Good luck, Beth. I'm gonna go for the Queen's Gambit. If she plays c4, we could get the Queen's Gambit. No, she doesn't play the Queen's Gambit just yet. No Queen's Gambit. No Queen's Gambit. Is this a good setup? I'm not sure. Knight c3 is an interesting way of playing the Queen's pawn opening. f3. Interesting. In a close position like this, I may not be able to take advantage of that move. Actually, it's not a bad move here, I think. But depending on how Beth follows up, it could turn out as a not so optimal choice for her. She's playing the Jababa London and she's going for a sacrifice. Wait a second. This is hanging. Beth, you are being way too generous with your pieces. Real question, if Anna at age of 9 could have beaten Beth at age of 9, I think so. It's at the age of 9 when I beat my first Grandmaster opponent. It was a simultaneous exhibition, so simul's are of course not like a one-on-one game against the Grandmaster, but I was 9 years old, 9.5, when I beat my first Grandmaster opponent. So I think at 9 I was probably stronger than Beth at 9, but we shall see what happens at later stages. I'm gonna draw that king out here because she cannot take back with the pawn, then I will win the rook. So let's give up this pawn and get the king out. She does not take it, but if she does not take it, I'm gonna take with the rook here, and after the rook trade, the knight is hanging and I'm threatening to promote the pawn. So I'm winning the rook now. We can also give this check if we want to, but let's just get rid of the rook first. In this position, lots of moves should be appealing. We want to get to this king with the rest of our pieces to open up the position and develop the rest of our squad as well. This knight was not doing anything. We can get the queen into the game and castle. There's no concrete threat. Maybe Beth wants to push the pawn, but we are so much material up that I will just finish development, make sure that we are using all our pieces in the game. It's important that you don't just capture the free pieces, but you actually activate your pieces and maximize their potential, because you can only take advantage of your extra pieces if you are making sure that they are working as a team, all pieces as active as possible, helping each other. I can move the queen to h5, or I can give this check first and see where the king goes. Both are pretty appealing. G2 was also an option if I had not moved the rook, but if I moved first the queen. I just thought that this position is basically close to being curtains, because the rook is cutting the king, the bishop doesn't let the king move here. We are very close to checkmate. We could simply give this check, after which the king has nowhere to go, and if pawn to e4, we can take on d4. All these sacrifices on d4 look appealing too, but I would have to give up the queen for that. So let's just go for the simple check, force white to push the e-pawn. Now we can take here with the check. After, actually, rook takes, king e3. Will we be able to give checkmate there or not? It's of course a very, very much winning position, but I'm trying to see which one would be the fastest, the prettiest checkmate. Because now, if we just take the queen, our queen is gone too. We will then capture the rook, and we are lots of material up, but is that the fastest way to checkmate? I think maybe the fastest way would be if I keep the queen on the board, and I'm threatening now to take the queen or move the rook away. This is gonna be checkmate now. We could take the queen, it's free, but then the king has this square to run to, so I'm gonna make a different move. Actually, will I? I was thinking of this one, double check. Now this, of course, everything is winning. Taking the queen is the easiest, but if rook takes, king comes back to d3, then we have checkmate next move. So this is checkmate into, the king has to come here. And now we have a choice between checkmates. We can play queen d4 checkmate, we can play rook e3 checkmate, or we can play knight to e5. I like the knight checkmate the most, because that's, among these three, the least valuable piece. And that finishes the game, a horsey giving checkmate. So that has been Beth at the age of 9. Things will now only get more and more difficult. Things will only get more difficult now. Let's see. Beth at the age of 10 is 1600. She's a strong club player now, capable of taking on a room full of high school players in a simultaneous exhibition. I love that scene from The Queen's Gambit. Can you survive against this chess prodigy? I need a challenge. Can you provide that? Hopefully I can, Beth. Did I pick the color? I was gonna choose random color, but hey. Here we go. We've got the white pieces in this game against Beth at the age of 10. And she plays her favorite opening with the black pieces, the Sicilian defense. There we go. There we go. Hopefully all the way up, Vila. I have seen that Alex and Andrea have played against Beth. I don't know yet the end. I started watching the YouTube video just now, before my stream. And I was curious to see how far they got. But I haven't finished the video because I had to start my stream. So I'm not sure yet. I'm playing the Rossolimo, which was one of the main openings at the 2018 World Chess Championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. I was there as the host of the show in London, so I have seen quite a few times this opening on the board. G6 is one of the most common responses. I usually like to take the horsey and go for this dynamic imbalance, where white has a better pawn structure, but black has got the pair of bishops. Beth takes back with the d-pawn, b takes c6 is somewhat less popular but also playable. I'm just gonna go for the usual setup of the Rossolimo. Bishop g7 is a very normal continuation. Beth knows her theory. At age of 10, she knows theory. She does know theory. Oh, she does know theory, but she wasn't careful enough. I played h3 to provoke her to take my knight, and I would have taken back with the queen. Slightly better position for white in that case, because there's no more pair of bishops for black. But the retreat of the bishop isn't a good one, because the bishop has nowhere to run after I push g4. The bishop is trapped. Beth is too generous, once again too generous. Pushing c4 is a thematic move in the Rossolimo in this pawn structure, but a piece is a piece, and I love free stuff. I absolutely love free stuff. She's defending her pawn on the queen side, but I don't really care about these. I can just ignore this pawn trade. I can also push, or I can spend more time developing the rest of my pieces, and that's what I'm gonna do. We can take back with the queen basically, because since we are a piece up, simplifying the position makes perfect sense. Intense stare! You cheated? Beth, wait a second, I'm only just realizing. She's trolling me. She's bullying me. Beth, how dare! I have not. Are you among those few people who told me that I have an engine in my lip balm? Beth, you're better than that. You're way better than that. How dare! Beth! I'm just gonna castle to protect this pawn and then jump here with the horsey. How dare! Beth. It's okay, she's only 10. She's only 10. She doesn't know what she's saying. She doesn't know the consequences. How harmful it can be if you just go and accuse people. It's very harmful. I'm taking this free pawn, and this one is not that free because if I do capture it too, rook c8 will pick up my knight. That's a pin. Thank you so much, Adas, for the subscription. Thank you for the support. So instead of capturing that, this will be hanging once I move the knight away. So perhaps I didn't have to go for that pawn, but I'm a piece up, so anything that means simplifying the position actually is good. And this square for the knight is extremely good. Even if she takes, this is not hanging because of the knight protecting it. So there's a bishop and rook attacking, but my knight and king are guarding the pawn, and I'm just gonna shift my king over to the second rank, and then I can bring the rook over to a1. I didn't mind about this capture because that doubles the pawns and opens the g5 for my rooks. So for now I'm just gonna trade this one. That's the most active piece of my opponent. It makes sense to trade the best pieces of your opponent. That will maximize the potential of the rest of your own pieces. So now that we have this open 5 for our rook, we have a nice check on the back rank that we could go for. And yeah, I pretty much am a fan of that check. I'm gonna go for it. It's a piece up and Beth still hasn't developed the king side. We could use this time that she will need for the development to grab more free stuff, because if we get this pawn, we will have a passed pawn. Passed pawns are key when converting endgames, so I'm gonna try to make a queen out of this b2 pawn. Knight e7, now we could trade this rook if we want to, or we could make it really annoying for Beth by pinning the knight. So this is hanging now. The rook is guarding the knight, so we are not winning that piece at the moment, but I have more fire here thanks to these pieces. All of them are attacking the e7 knight. All of her pieces are tied down to the defense, and these are the type of positions where you don't need to start capturing everything, because until you have this threat, black cannot move these 3 pieces. 4 if we count the pinned piece, but the knight on e7 is the pinned piece. Every other piece is tied down to the defense of that pinned piece. So the best strategy in positions like this is that you improve the rest of your position, the rest of your pieces, activate them further. I can move this king away, for instance. I can drop the king back to start pushing the passed pawn, try to promote it. And in the meantime, she will be struggling because she cannot move any of those pieces. I just need to make sure I move the king to a square where it doesn't get into any issues. So I'm gonna move it to the a5. There are no checks. It's very safe. She moves the rook away to attack my knight and bishop. But now it's time to start thinking which capture is better. Bishop takes or knight takes. Not knight d7, but knight takes. I think I'm gonna win more material if I take first with the bishop. If bishop takes, rook takes, then I can give this discover check by bringing the bishop all the way back. The king has to be protecting the f8 bishop. If she goes to e8, I have rook a8 check. If she goes to g8, I have rook a8 pinning the bishop. So I think after bishop takes e7, we are winning material. Now this discover check, the rook is giving check. She has to keep protecting the bishop, but after rook a8, we're gonna end up winning the bishop because it's pinned. Now we can take on f8 either with the bishop or with the rook. I like both. I think I'm gonna take with the bishop just to threaten another discover check. I can go wherever I want to. It's smart that Beth moves away. She doesn't let me go for another discover check. that's okay. But we are 2 pieces up at this stage. It should be winning easily. I'm gonna get the knight into the game too. She did not take my pawn, she wants to take this one. I basically want to start pushing the b pawn, but right now it's pinned. My king on a2 does not let me push the b pawn. So we could focus in the meantime on the rest of the pieces. I'm gonna move the bishop back. Now it's not doing anything on f8 anymore. And now this check is an appealing one because the king has to step away from the protection of the e6 pawn. I'm gonna take this pawn and threaten with a fork on f4. She prevents it. She does see tactics. She does see tactics, but it's still a very annoying position for her because after rook g7 check, king h6, bishop e3, the only way for Beth to prevent checkmate is to give up the rook for my bishop. She has to take it, and I'm gonna take back. It's not stalemate. It's important to take a look at the position. She can still move her pawns. She cannot move the king, but she still has pawns to push. So there is no stalemate in this position. I'm gonna go and switch over to the attack over the h pawn. And now, what would be the shortest way to win? I'm gonna give this check, then this check. Actually, is that the fastest? Maybe not. And also I should be very careful. If I don't give checks right now, she only has one move. She can only push the pawn to h6. How will we give checkmate in the fastest way? That's the fastest. So if I keep giving checks with the knight, and the king will always go back to where it was. If I give this check with the rook, then the king can go back to the g file. So the fastest way to mate here is to pass. You're gonna give a card to your opponent saying, your turn. At chess, you can do this by making a move, any move. If I move my pawn or king or anything on the other flank of the board, I'm not touching what's here, then black has to push the pawn to h6. And after pushing the pawn to h6, that pawn will be taking away the square where the king wants to run. So knight g7 will be checkmate. Can you visualize that? If the pawn is on h6, knight g7 is checkmate, but I want to force her to push that. I'm not gonna let her king move in the meantime. I'm gonna push a pawn on the queen side, make her push the h pawn, and now knight g7 is checkmate. And so we have beaten Beth at the age of 10. This so far hasn't been very difficult, but once again, I have played chess my whole life, so it's not like a big deal that I can beat her at the age of 10. I'm gonna struggle a lot more when we go upper and upper in her career. Oh my, she's saying, this is my first loss since Mr. Scheibel taught me how to play. Show me how you beat me. She wants to learn. She wants to learn from her mistakes. And I know that the actual Beth would have resigned earlier. I think that's the one thing that's maybe not programmed into the bot, because Mr. Scheibel did teach her. Remember? Now you resign. Now you do. She did not resign in this game, but that led to a beautiful checkmate. I love this final position and how the king cannot run away because black's own pawn on h6. The more I look at it, the better it becomes. Goodness me, am I in trouble? I'm starting to see lines for her that aren't really good for me. How do I get out of this, guys? How do I get out of this? Thank you so much for watching. This was streamed live on my Twitch channel where I stream full time, 5 days a week. Do catch us live next time or follow the highlights and the VODs here on my YouTube channel. In either case, I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much again and bye for now. Until the next time.